Yo, today we're diving into the absolute darkest anime crossover ever. Trust me, it gets brutal. Scan that QR code to donate and keep the channel alive. Let's go.
The Hidden Leaf Village basks in the warm, unforgiving light of high noon, completely unaware that its peace is about to expire forever. A gentle breeze sweeps through the quiet streets, offering a fleeting calm before a storm no shinobi could ever anticipate. Suddenly, the pristine blue sky fractures. A suffocating heat descends, warping the very air above the sacred monument. A blazing sphere of absolute destruction tears through the atmosphere, burning a fiery, violent scar across the peaceful heavens. This isn't a natural disaster. The deafening roar of friction screams like a harbinger of pure, unadulterated death. Shadows stretch and distort across the rooftops as the colossal fireball eclipses the midday sun, plunging everything into darkness. The temperature spikes instantly. The air grows so incredibly heavy it feels like the oxygen is being violently sucked out. Plunging at absolute terminal velocity, the glowing projectile locks its destructive trajectory dead center on the heart of the village. Shockwaves ripple ahead of the impact, shattering windows and ripping solid roof tiles off buildings in a chaotic frenzy. Time seems to freeze for a fraction of a second, suspending the village in a terrifying, breathless anticipation of doom. The earth shatters. A cataclysmic explosion detonates in the square, violently erasing the peaceful landscape in a blinding, brutal flash. A monstrous wave of kinetic force erupts outward, tearing ancient trees from their roots and crumbling stone walls like paper. The ground violently caves in, carving a massive, smoking crater deep into the sacred, historical soil of the leaf. A suffocating pillar of thick, black dust and debris chokes the sky, burying the heart of the village in absolute darkness. From the shadows, Konoha's elite anbu black ops materialize instantly, landing around the smoking perimeter with their hearts pounding. Gripping their blades tightly, the masked assassins step into the blinding dust, their senses pushed to maximum alert. The smoke parts slightly, revealing a spherical, alien pod glowing with an intense, unnatural heat right at the epicenter. The strange metallic vessel hums with a terrifying, mechanical heartbeat, completely alien to absolutely anything in the shinobi world. A sudden, sharp hiss pierces the silence. The pressurized seal violently releases, spewing a chilling, thick white vapor outward. The heavy steel hatch slowly descends, revealing a pitch-black void. The sheer oppressive energy radiating outward is totally suffocating. A white, armored boot steps out of the shadows, crushing the scorched earth beneath it with absolute, careless authority. Vegeta steps into the light. His cold, calculating eyes sweep over the ruined landscape, finding nothing but utter disappointment.
Such a worthless little planet. Is this really the maximum power of your so-called warriors?
Eliminating all hesitation, the anbu squad launches a synchronized, lethal strike, their blades slicing through the air toward the invader. They strike from the blind spots with absolutely flawless precision, aiming directly for the vital organs to end it. Vegeta doesn't even flinch. A chilling, sadistic smirk creeps across his face as he casually raises a single hand. With a lazy flick of his wrist, a minuscule fraction of his ki violently ignites, instantly distorting reality itself. The air compresses. A devastating shockwave of invisible energy instantly vaporizes the elite squad before they can even touch him. No screams. No struggle. Just a deafening crunch as armor and bone are effortlessly crushed into a fine, bloody mist. The dust settles once more. Vegeta stands alone amidst the absolute silence, leaving only the grim reality of his dominance. The fifth Hokage arrives at ground zero, only to find the absolute nightmare that has swallowed her beloved village whole. Her breath hitches. The legendary Sannin stares at the bloody remains of her elite guard, completely paralyzed by the gruesome sight. No honorable battle was fought here. This was a merciless execution, an effortless crushing of Konoha's absolute finest warriors. Sorrow instantly morphs into pure, unadulterated rage. The sheer anger coursing through her veins feels like it could shatter the earth. She unleashes a monstrous wave of chakra. The immense pressure physically pushes the toxic air away, declaring her lethal intent. Every single muscle in her body is coiled like a deadly spring, hyper-focused on the arrogant monster standing in the ruins. The bedrock violently fractures under her feet, unable to contain the sheer destructive kinetic energy she is about to unleash. Down below, the invader finally looks up. His eyes hold absolutely zero fear, only the bored annoyance of a disturbed predator. Propelled by pure rage, she launches herself like a human missile, instantly breaking the sound barrier to execute her target. Closing the distance in a fraction of a second, she channels every ounce of her monstrous strength into one singular strike. She focuses her legendary chakra into her fist, preparing a blow guaranteed to shatter mountains and obliterate anything in its path. Vegeta merely smirks. Facing a punch that could flatten an entire city, he doesn't even bother to shift his stance. With a furious war cry, the Hokage delivers her ultimate, bone-crushing strike directly toward the arrogant invader's face. The unstoppable force violently meets an absolutely immovable object. But this object is nothing more than a single, mocking fingertip. The resulting kinetic shockwave brutally obliterates the surrounding landscape, yet the man himself doesn't slide back a single millimeter. The dust clears to reveal an impossible nightmare. Her absolute maximum power, effortlessly negated by a casual, insulting gesture.
Impossible! My full power, and he didn't even flinch?
Nah, ain't no way. Blood really just blocked a Hokage-level punch with one single finger. Y'all better vote in the poll right now. Is Tsunade totally cooked?
Before her brain can even process the shock, the predator strikes back. His grip clamps onto her wrist like titanium. The mocking smile vanishes, replaced instantly by the cold, ruthless glare of a seasoned galactic conqueror. With a casual flick of his wrist, he violently twists her arm, shattering the bones instantly into countless jagged fragments. A blinding wave of excruciating agony paralyzes her nervous system. She cannot even scream before the next blow lands. Showing absolutely zero mercy, he delivers a blindingly fast strike to her remaining shoulder, fully neutralizing her combat ability. Both of her arms are brutally dismantled in less than a second, turning the strongest woman in the village entirely defenseless. Tossed away like broken garbage, the fifth Hokage crashes heavily into the scorched dirt, utterly humiliated and physically broken. She violently coughs up blood, the horrific pain threatening to drag her down into unconsciousness. The difference in power is absolute. But she refuses to die on her knees. Swallowing the unbearable agony, she forces her legendary willpower to take absolute control. The Ein seal on her forehead violently flares to life, releasing decades of carefully stored, highly concentrated chakra. The creation rebirth marks violently carve themselves across her skin. The Forbidden 100 Healings Jutsu is fully activated. In a terrifying display of cellular regeneration, her completely shattered bones violently snap back into place, healing every wound instantly. She stands tall once more, her body completely flawless. A defiant beacon of survival against an utterly impossible, overwhelming threat. For the first time since he landed, the Saiyan conqueror's expression shifts. The absolute disdain melts into a dangerous, calculating curiosity.
Oh? Instant cellular regeneration. Now that is a very useful trick for a fragile little toy.
Growing utterly bored of this pathetic resistance, the Saiyan conqueror decides it is time to end this ridiculous little game once and for all. He doesn't throw a punch. He merely flexes his ki. An invisible, godlike pressure instantly drops from the sky like a solid mountain of iron. The atmosphere instantly compresses. A terrifying shockwave of pure gravity slams into the earth, bending reality itself under its impossible, suffocating weight. The sheer force of his energy alone is enough to violently crush the surrounding buildings, flattening solid stone into absolute, meaningless dust. Every surviving shinobi in the vicinity is violently pinned to the dirt. They cannot move. They cannot fight. They cannot even breathe. Innocent civilians and children are mercilessly crushed against the earth, suffocating in sheer terror as the atmosphere itself turns into an inescapable weapon. The light itself bends and warps. The intense gravitational field blocks out the sun, plunging the village into a terrifying, bruised twilight. Even with the 100 Healings Jutsu fully active, the Hokage's perfectly regenerated bones groan and fracture under the terrifying, godlike weight. Her physical strength is legendary, yet her blood vessels burst and her muscles scream in agony as she fights a totally unwinnable war. Her legs finally betray her. The mighty Sannin is brutally forced down onto one knee, completely overwhelmed by a power that defies reality. The earth surrenders entirely. The crater is pressed perfectly flat, leaving the Saiyan standing like an untouchable deity in a dead world. The crushing pressure holds everything completely still. Then, the terrifyingly calm sound of his footsteps breaks the agonizing silence of the battlefield. He stalks toward his defeated prey. There is absolutely no rush, no anger left. Just the cold, mechanical approach of a conqueror claiming his prize. He stops right in front of her. His imposing silhouette swallows the kneeling Hokage entirely, plunging her into a terrifying, inescapable darkness. Looking down at the strongest woman in this broken world, he sees absolutely nothing but a highly useful, durable tool ready to be collected. He casually raises a single finger, aiming it flawlessly toward the fragile, unprotected remnants of the civilian shelters hiding in the distant ruins. A minuscule fraction of his power condenses into a lethal sphere, carrying enough destructive force to wipe the entire geographic region off the map.
Here's the deal. Swear total loyalty and become my personal property right now, or I turn this pathetic dirtball and everyone left on it into cosmic ash.
The ultimatum is absolute. Submit entirely to a monster, or watch every single man, woman, and child she swore to protect be instantly vaporized. Her desperate gaze shifts toward the burning ruins. The agonizing cries of the innocent echo through the valley, demanding a sacrifice only she can make. She sees the crushed bodies. She sees the terrified, suffocating children looking toward their Hokage for a miracle that simply does not exist. The internal war is agonizing. Her immense shinobi pride violently clashes against her fundamental, unbreakable duty to ensure the absolute survival of the leaf. She bites down so hard her lip splits open. The bitter taste of her own blood mixes with the absolute, suffocating death of her warrior's pride. The sacred markings of the 100 healings jutsu slowly fade away. She voluntarily powers down, physically manifesting her absolute, tragic, and permanent surrender. Swallowing her pride, her honor, and her entire identity, the broken Hokage slowly lowers her head, accepting the darkest pact imaginable to save her people. The suffocating gravity instantly vanishes. Vegeta extinguishes his energy, a chilling, victorious grin carving itself onto his ruthless, aristocratic face. Without a single shred of hesitation, his gloved hand violently shoots forward, claiming his newly acquired property with absolute, merciless, and degrading force.
Smart choice, pet. Now be a good girl and follow your new master.
He turns his back on the decimated village, ruthlessly dragging the once proud ruler through the dirt like a mere, insignificant spoil of war. She is violently shoved into the cold, alien darkness of the vessel. The metallic cage offers no warmth, sealing her horrific, inescapable fate.
No shot she just rolls over and accepts this, right? She's a literal legend. I'm betting she's waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
Night violently consumes the ruined village. Inside the belly of the alien beast, an oppressive, suffocating silence replaces the chaotic sounds of slaughter. The interior is a claustrophobic, metallic nightmare. It is completely devoid of warmth, acting as a perfect, inescapable cage for the fallen leader. The conqueror rests on his throne with his eyes closed. He drops his guard completely, treating this hostile world with absolute, unquestionable contempt. Slumped in the darkest corner, her body is captive, but her warrior's spirit remains unbroken. The mind of a Hokage is constantly plotting. A singular piece of shattered metal. A remnant of her fallen elite guard. It is absolutely primitive, but it is an opportunity. Moving with the absolute, terrifying silence of a master assassin, her fingers slowly wrap around the cold steel in the pitch-black shadows. She locks onto his jugular. Every single instinct screams at her to take the shot, to risk absolutely everything on one flawless, fatal strike. He doesn't move. He doesn't flinch. To the trained eye of a shinobi, his exposed throat is an absolute, undeniable invitation for death. She dangerously suppresses her immense chakra, forcing every single drop into the broken steel edge to create an impossibly sharp, armor-piercing weapon. Rising from the shadows like a vengeful ghost, she eliminates every single sound from her movements. This must be an absolutely perfect execution. She crosses the short distance. Every single millimeter is calculated, her body primed to unleash an explosive burst of lethal kinetic energy. The broken blade is reinforced with her legendary chakra, transforming a piece of scrap metal into a blade capable of severing solid diamond. The target is flawlessly acquired. The carotid artery is completely exposed, totally unprotected by his advanced alien armor. With terrifying speed, she completely abandons stealth for raw, explosive power, driving the lethal blade forward with absolutely everything she has. All of the pain, all of the humiliation, and all of her terrifying desperation are channeled directly into this one, singular, absolutely flawless strike. The deadly blade slices through the heavy air. It is a strike executed with such absolute perfection that it guarantees instant death. He doesn't twitch. He doesn't even open his eyes. The monster remains entirely still as the lethal weapon approaches his throat. She drives the weapon home with bone-crushing force, fully expecting to sever the artery and end this nightmare immediately. The deadly, chakra-infused steel violently meets his bare skin. But instead of slicing through flesh, it halts immediately, entirely rejected by his biology. The blade violently shatters into useless dust. The sheer, impossible density of his body completely mocks her ultimate assassination attempt. She freezes completely. Holding nothing but a jagged hilt, the terrifying realization of his absolute, godlike invulnerability finally crashes down upon her. Her mind totally fractures. Not even a scratch. The sheer, undeniable reality of their power gap shatters her final shred of hope. The conqueror slowly opens his eyes. There is no shock, no alarm. He was completely awake the entire time, simply waiting for her to fail. Before her lungs can even draw a single breath, the monster strikes back. His arm violently blurs forward with inescapable, terrifying speed. His vice-like grip violently crushes her windpipe. The absolute authority of his strength instantly neutralizes her entire existence in a single second. Without exerting a single ounce of effort, he lifts the mighty Hokage entirely off the ground, suspending her helplessly in the cold, dark air. She fiercely claws at his titanium grip, her lungs burning in absolute agony as she fights a completely useless, pathetic struggle against a god. He violently yanks her closer. The dark, terrifying abyss of his eyes completely swallows her desperate, suffocating panic without a shred of mercy.
That look, that desperate, suffocating hatred in your eyes. Keep it. I'm going to enjoy breaking it piece by piece.
The rebellion ends in complete, utter failure. Trapped in the dark belly of the beast, she fully realizes her terrifying reality as his eternal prisoner. Under the cover of darkness, opportunists arrive. Sensing the absolute devastation of the leaf, enemy forces crawl out to claim the spoils of war. They trample on the sacred crest of the village. To them, this apocalyptic nightmare is nothing more than a highly profitable, unguarded treasure chest. The scavengers mobilize instantly. Driven by pure greed, they prepare to effortlessly slaughter whatever broken survivors remain in the smoking wreckage. Like a plague of locusts descending on a dying crop, the invaders flood the ruined streets, fully expecting an incredibly easy victory. The defenders of the leaf are completely drained. Broken by the alien god, they have absolutely zero strength left to fight off an invasion. A merciless execution is about to begin. The enemy shows no hesitation, eager to wipe the hidden leaf permanently off the map. The opportunistic army pushes deeper. Their massive numbers flood toward the epicenter, totally unaware of the sleeping cosmic nightmare inside the crater. Inside the dark vessel, the silence is suddenly shattered. The advanced alien radar forcefully detects a massive swarm of weak, pathetic biological signatures. His rest is violently interrupted. The conqueror opens his eyes, totally disgusted that a bunch of insignificant gnats dare to make noise near him. He mercilessly drops his new captive. His attention shifts entirely from the broken Hokage to the incredibly annoying pests swarming outside his ship. Rising from his seat, he radiates pure, terrifying irritation. To a god of destruction, an invading army is nothing more than annoying static. The heavy steel door violently opens, releasing a terrifying blast of pressurized air into the dead, frozen silence of the shattered wasteland. Stepping back into the apocalyptic ruins, his murderous gaze sweeps the horizon. The conqueror is extremely annoyed, and the punishment will be absolute. The fallen Hokage violently stumbles out behind him, desperately clutching her crushed throat, completely powerless to stop whatever madness is about to happen. Standing tall on the edge of the massive crater, he looks down upon the broken world, the absolute lord and master of his domain. In the distance, the swarm of scavengers blindly charges forward, foolishly marching directly into the absolute epicenter of a cosmic nightmare. Her sensory skills detect the foreign chakra. She realizes instantly that a rival army has come to slaughter her completely defenseless people. He watches the pathetic little ants scurrying through the dirt. There is absolutely no heroism here, only the extreme disgust of a disturbed owner. Suddenly, the invaders freeze. A terrifying, godlike pressure instantly paralyzes their bodies, warning them of a predator that defies all known logic. With the casual laziness of swatting a fly, the Saiyan conqueror slowly raises his hand, condemning the entire army to absolute, instantaneous oblivion. A blinding sphere of golden energy violently ignites. It holds a fraction of his true power, yet enough kinetic force to shatter a continent. The Hokage stares in absolute terror. The sheer, overwhelming density of his energy completely shatters everything she ever understood about the physical world.
Filthy trash! Did I ever give you permission to touch my property?
He fires. A monstrous wave of pure, golden destruction violently erupts from his hand, tearing through the atmosphere at blinding, inescapable speed. The pitch-black night is violently erased. A blinding, terrifying artificial sun tears across the heavens, bringing absolute annihilation to the ignorant invaders. The impact is absolute. There is no defense, no time to scream, and no time to beg. The wave of death swallows them entirely. Cellular structures violently disintegrate. Armor, flesh, and bone are flawlessly erased from reality, leaving absolutely no trace of their pathetic existence behind. The light dies. Where an army stood a second ago, there is absolutely nothing but a smooth, violently glowing trench carved into the earth. Not a single drop of blood is spilled. The utter eradication is so terrifyingly clean that it defies the very concept of warfare. He slowly lowers his hand. He didn't save the village to be a hero. He merely destroyed the insignificant insects who dared to touch his property. The glowing smoke clears. Tsunade stands absolutely paralyzed, her mind shattering as she witnesses the effortless, godlike erasure of an entire army. Every single ounce of hope incinerates. The sheer, terrifying reality of his absolute power permanently destroys any remaining thought of rebellion. This is not a mere ninja. This is a walking extinction event, a cosmic force that views their entire world as meaningless dust. Brushing the cosmic ash from his armor, the conqueror stands entirely unbothered, having swatted away an invasion like a completely trivial annoyance. Her trembling fists slowly uncurl. The fierce, legendary pride of the Sannin quietly bleeds out into the cold, unforgiving dirt. A single tear marks the death of the Hokage. She buries her honor to ensure the absolute survival of whatever remains. The gap between them is an infinite abyss. She fully realizes that defiance equals extinction, and submission is the only currency left. He glances over his shoulder. The tyrant does not need to speak, his cold, expectant eyes demand her total, unconditional surrender. She wipes away the weakness. Her amber eyes harden into a cold, dark resolve, fully accepting the twisted, invisible chains. She drops her guard entirely. The invisible, dark contract is silently signed in the ashes of her completely obliterated village.
That dark romance survival instinct just kicked in. Stockholm Syndrome is hitting crazy hard. She knows she gotta play his game now.
With a heavy, deliberate step, she walks out of the shadows. The proud leader is dead, only the survivor remains. Every single step is a betrayal of her past, a dark, necessary compromise carefully calculated to protect the broken remnants of her home. Her eyes reflect absolutely no defiance. Only a chilling, obedient endurance perfectly crafted to satisfy the dark ego of a cosmic tyrant. The conqueror watches his prize approach. A deeply sinister, utterly satisfied smirk stretches across his face as total victory is finally cemented. She approaches the immovable god of destruction. The absolute master and his newly acquired queen, forged in the fires of an apocalyptic nightmare. Stopping before him, she deliberately bows her head. The final, undeniable physical gesture of a ruler handing over her entire kingdom. His gloved hand reaches out. Not to strike, but to forcefully lift her chin, demanding absolute eye contact from his new property. Their eyes lock. The conqueror and the captive. A terrifyingly intimate exchange sealing the darkest, most unbreakable pact in Shinobi history.
Smart girl. Welcome to your new reality. As long as you obey, your pathetic little world gets to survive.
She closes her eyes, swallowing the bitter poison of submission. The absolute surrender is complete, sealing her fate in his unyielding grip. Dawn breaks over a completely shattered world. The sacred monument of past leaders stands in absolute ruins, making way for a new, terrifying regime. Standing atop the highest peak of the ruined village, the alien conqueror claims his throne, gazing down upon his newly acquired, broken kingdom. The fallen queen steps out of the shadows. Standing precisely one step below him, she physically embodies her dark, inescapable role as his permanent shadow. The ultimate symbol of power. A ruthless, unstoppable tyrant and the incredibly powerful, utterly broken woman forced to stand forever by his side. He smirks at the rising sun. A world conquered without breaking a single sweat, yielding a highly amusing, deeply satisfying prize. Her face remains hidden in his dark shadow. A queen reduced to property, silently enduring a horrifying, completely inescapable nightmare. The hidden leaf is no more. Under the absolute rule of the Saiyan god, a brand new, terrifying era of dark submission officially begins. This twisted reality is absolute. The universe of Naruto will never, ever be the same again.
Wow, that ending was insanely dark. Drop a like, scan that QR to donate, and tell me, who is Vegeta's next victim in Naruto? Comment below.